Hi, welcome to the How to Teach Adult Classes webinar. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Colleen Cole. I'm the Vice President of the Mayron Cole Music Conservatory, and I am Mayron's daughter. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about this GoToMeeting software that we're using today before we progress. You should see the GoToMeeting panel on your screen, and in that panel there should be a chat window. If everyone can type yes and send that to me, then that lets me know that not only can you hear me, but also that you have found the chat window and that we're ready to go. Okay, good. Looks like we have yeses trickling in. Yes. Okay, great. You can go ahead and click the little orange rectangle on the GoToMeeting panel. There's a little orange rectangle with a white arrow in it. You can click on that. That's going to close the GoToMeeting software. You can go ahead and close that. We won't need it until the end. I'll ask you to save any questions that you have until the end of the presentation. If you send me questions during my presentation, it breaks my train of thought because I have to stop to read your questions. Also, hopefully I'll answer most of your questions for you. And at the end, if you do have any questions, then we will reopen that chat window and you can send any questions that you have to me in that chat window. All right, so you're interested in teaching adult classes. Well, first we need to talk about how to advertise adult classes if you're thinking of including those with the other classes that you already teach for children. The easiest way to advertise that you're teaching adult classes is to go ahead and include that information in all of the other advertising that you're already doing to advertise your piano studio for children's classes. So any ads or postcards or flyers that you already intend to send out for the children's classes, you can also just put a little line on there, now registering beginner adult classes. That's one of the easiest ways to advertise your adult classes. Another way to advertise your adult classes is to teach the class through your rec center or continuing education program through your school district. There are many continuing education programs out there, either through the school district or through your rec center, and they offer all types of different classes for adults. They can teach, basic car mechanics. They can teach how to do your taxes. They can teach, French cooking class. They usually have, a whole list of different classes that they offer specifically for adults. So that's a really good place to advertise for your classes because any adult that's thinking that they want to take some kind of class in whatever subject, maybe they haven't even decided that they actually want piano lessons, but they're thinking, I have some time on my hands, I think I'd like to take a class. Then they would look through the continuing education class program to see what's available. The good thing about these types of programs is that the rec center or the school district pay to advertise the classes. They put together an entire little newspaper and they mail it out to everyone in the community. They also handle all of the registration for the classes. So in your little information about your class, you briefly describe the class, and then you give the price for the class and the tuition and the cost of the book, and the school district gathers all of that payments for you, and then they cut you a check. So it's really handy because it's absolutely no work on your part, and they're basically handing students directly to you. And again, like I said, that's a place where adults look for classes. Adults that are thinking of taking a class, they already look at these programs. So it's very convenient for you. Okay, so beginner classes for adults, I just need to state right off that you cannot mix adults and children in the same class. Many times adults want to take piano with their child. They think, oh, this would be something fun that we can do together. We both want to learn how to play the piano. Let's do this together. I would love to take a piano class with my 7-year-old. That literally does not work. Adults learn, obviously, at a much faster pace than the children, and that would do nothing but frustrate the children and make them want to quit. And then, if the adults, it's not feasible to have adults in your piano class with your children because if the parent is in there and the child starts misbehaving, you can't exactly correct the child because the child's sitting next to the mom, and if the mom is not saying anything, how can you say anything? But at the same time, if the child misbehaves, the mom can't exactly say anything. It's your class. You're the one in charge of the class. So it's never a good idea to mix classes with adults and children. Just take my advice. Don't even try it. All right, so many adults have had piano as a child, and that's why I keep saying on all of these that these are beginning classes for adults, beginner classes. The reason for that is that because so many adults have had piano as a child, they are all at different levels, and they all have different learning gaps in their piano knowledge. Even if they didn't have learning gaps when they were young, it may be decades since they took piano lessons, and they've probably lost some information, whether it's how to read the staff notes or how to count rhythm. And it's just very difficult for you to try to figure out what they've learned and what they haven't learned. Also, many adults will sit there and tell you that they're beginners. Oh yeah, I took piano for 4 years, but it'd probably be really good for me to go back to the beginning and start over. Well, what they don't mention is that those 4 years could very well have been 4 years in college. Well, 4 years of college piano, say 5 or 6 years ago, does not qualify you as a beginner. And the problem with any adult that has ever had piano of any kind is that they intimidate the students that actually are beginners. And the students that actually are beginners will get so frustrated thinking that they're so far behind that they can't do what this other person can do, and then the beginners will quit. So the easiest way for you to schedule your adult classes is to say these are beginner piano classes for adults that have had absolutely no piano. It's just, to try to figure out which gaps they have, and even if you think, oh, I'll just start everyone as beginners even if they've had piano, that's just way too frustrating for those students that actually are beginners. So one way to get around that is to just say, I will only teach people that have never had any piano. If you don't want to turn away adults that have had piano before, what you can do is teach them privately. That way you can get an idea of how much piano knowledge they actually have. You can also perhaps audition you can also audition adults that have had piano to see if they actually could fit into a beginner class. I can't tell you how many times I've had adults say, oh, I took piano as a child, but I'm just terrible. I can't play anything. I don't remember anything. And then they sit down and they're basically at like level 6 level, which is fine. I mean, that's great. But you can see that putting them in with someone that has never had any piano would be entirely frustrating. I mean, when you're starting off teaching them, this is a quarter note, you hold it down for the count of 1, and then later on in the lesson, okay, everybody look and see how the black keys are divided into groups of 2s and groups of 3s. That's not really a lesson that someone that's in level 6 piano can sit through. So what you can do if you do want to take those adults that have had piano before is teach them privately. That of course does mean that you're teaching private lessons, which you're probably trying to get away from. But if you feel that you're in a position that you don't want to turn students away, then that is always an option. Another option is to, before I move on, one problem with adult piano students in a private lesson is that they quickly fall into the habit of not practicing. They actually fall into the habit of not practicing a lot faster than even the children do. Adults are very busy outside of piano. Many of them work, and when they know that they can walk into a piano lesson and say they haven't practiced, then they very quickly fall in the habit of doing that. The adults also have it in their mind that, I paid for this piano lesson. If I didn't practice, then, no one can say anything to me about it because it's my money, which is true, but it definitely makes for not fun piano lessons. It definitely makes your life fairly boring when they keep walking in and they haven't practiced at all. Another option for beginner adults that have had piano before, if you have a large studio or you have a lot of adults that want to take piano, is to see if you can group them together and put them in classes that are not beginner classes. Say maybe you have 2 or 3 adults that you could group together and put them in, say, a level 4 class and just start them at level 4. And you can decide that by auditioning them. Another thing you can do with adults that you intend to put into a more advanced class is to have some of our older beginner level 1 and older beginner level 2, maybe even 3A and 3B, have them on hand in your piano studio. You own the books, and you check them out to these adults. And you say, you know, you have 6 weeks to go through these books. And they come in to you once a week for a private lesson, or maybe even just a mini private lesson, 15 minutes, to just check in and see where they are on them. And then you can say, okay, starting January 1st, then we will have a class of level 4 students starting on January 1st. That way anyone that did have any gaps in there, all of their gaps are filled in, and you can start in level 4 in the fall. But having said all that, life is much easier to just teach beginner classes for adults. Okay, another thing about adults is that if you are going to teach adult piano classes, you need to be prepared for the fact that many of these adult students are going to quit. Adults do not stick with piano as long as children do. Children stick with piano for such a long time because their parents are the ones that keep signing them up. And these children are in school, so it's just normal for part of their school education for the 12 years that they're in school, or however many years they take piano, is to also sign up for piano every year. But an adult schedule doesn't follow the school year schedule, and adults tend to just think, oh, well, I'll just try this. Or maybe they even have really good intentions and they do plan to stick with it for a long time, but they get very busy, or they get stressed out at work, or something comes along, or they move, and they end up quitting. So I teach adults, many piano teachers do teach adults, but just go into it knowing that they're not going to stick with it as long, and then when they quit, you don't get upset about it. Adults also have a very short attention span, and they expect to become accomplished pianists overnight. It seems like with children, even adults are accepting of the fact that it will take a child, you know, many years to learn how to play the piano. They have no problem with the fact that they will be taking their child to piano lessons every year. You know, maybe for 12 years, maybe for 5 or 6 years, but they're okay with the fact that that's a year after year after year event. But with themselves, they expect to be able to do it quickly. Adults move on to other activities, and they get busy with work. So it's something to just keep in mind. Don't be upset if they sign up and they quit. Because the adults quit at a faster pace, you'll want to schedule your adult classes at the end of the day. That way, if you do have, say, an entire class of adult piano students that, you know, one by one quit before the end of the school year, you don't have a big gap in your schedule. Also, of course, it's easier to teach the adults at the end of the day because the children, we need to get them home earlier. It's difficult to teach a children's class, say, from 7:15 to 8 in the evening. You know, that's after dinner for a child. That's, you know, taking a bath and getting ready for bed. But with an adult class, 7:15 to 8 o'clock in the evening is a perfectly acceptable time for an adult class. So schedule your adult classes at the end of the day. That way, if they quit, it's not the end of the world for your schedule. Okay, now with your adult classes, you do want to follow the school year schedule, the school year teaching schedule that you keep for your children's classes. It's just going to make your schedule much easier if all of your classes, you know, start on the same day at the beginning of the school year, they end on the same day at the end of the school year, they all break at the same time for holidays. If you start trying to have two different schedules, well, these are the days I teach my adult classes, and these are the weeks that I teach my children's classes, that's going to get very confusing for you. So just keep them on the same schedule. Having said that, though, you do not want to have your adults pay monthly. The reason for that is that very often they do not want to commit to an entire school year of piano. You know, like I said, they get busy with work or something else comes along, and they don't want to take for that long. And of course, if you do have them pay monthly, even if they do say they're going to commit for an entire school year, they could very easily take 2 or 3 piano lessons and then quit. And if that happens, if you have a small class that only has, say, 2 or 3 students in it, and you have 1 or 2 of them take just a handful of classes and then quit, well, now suddenly you have a big gap in your schedule. So instead of having them pay monthly, it's better off to have them pay in larger increments and have them pay for the full amount up front. So what you can do is you can divide your teaching schedule into 4 equal parts. And you will divide your annual tuition that you charge for your children's students, you will also divide into 4 equal parts. And you will have the adults pay for those lessons up front. No refunds. So, for example, let's say that you teach, your teaching schedule is for 32 lessons for the school year. And let's say that you charge $600. That's just an example. We're not telling you how much to charge. But as an example, let's say that you teach 32 lessons for $600. And that's your normal schedule and your normal price for your children's classes. Then what you'll do for the adults is that you'll have them pay $150 up front for 8 lessons, and you'll have them pay that 4 times a year. So they're still receiving 32 lessons for $600, but instead of paying you once a month, they're paying for 8 lessons up front. And the good thing about that is that if they quit, if they take 1 lesson and quit, well, at least you didn't only get $60 out of it. You know, this way, you know, if they're going to hand you a check for $150, they're pretty much making a commitment that they are going to take those lessons, or at least they're going to be responsible for paying those lessons. At the same time, though, it makes them feel at ease because they're not committing to an entire school year of piano lessons. They're only committing to 8 piano lessons, and they can look at the schedule and go, yeah, okay, my schedule's open for 8 lessons. And they end up taking the same 32 lessons in the school year, but at least it feels a little bit better to them that they don't have to sit there and commit to, you know, 9 months of piano. So you will have the adults, when they sign up, they will sign a policy when they register, and I'm going to show you a copy of that policy in just a moment, and you will also be receiving a copy of that policy on Monday when I email the recording of this webinar to you. I will also be sending you an outline for this webinar, and at the back of that outline I'm giving you a copy of one of these policies for the adult classes, so you don't need to worry about, you know, trying to write everything down during this presentation. You will be receiving a copy of the policy. But in that policy it clearly states no refunds, no makeup lessons, no tuition credits. Adults are much worse about missing piano lessons than children are. As I said, they get busy, and they also think, hey, it's my money. If I don't want to go, I don't go. So the adults tend to miss more piano lessons than the children. So it's very important that you state up front that they will not be receiving any refunds if they miss lessons. And they have to sign that they agree to that, and that's in your policy. Okay, well, let's take a quick look at a policy for an adult piano class. And this is a copy of a policy for my adult piano classes. I've taken out the tuition prices because, of course, you need to charge your own tuition prices. But my piano studio's name is Piano Bayou. So this is one of my schedules. I think this is one that's a couple of years old. I think I read somewhere that it's from 2009. But we're going to take a look at this bit by bit. Okay, so at the top of the schedule, of course, you know, they have to give you all their contact information. Now, they're going to sign that they agree to the policy of your piano studio. Your policy. Please read the following policy. Below is an agreement to this policy. The student will be registered only after the agreement is signed, dated, and returned with a tuition check. Length of the course. The 32-lesson course for adults follows the GISD school year. That's, of course, the school district where my piano studio is. You need to put in yours. And runs from September through May. The 32-lesson course is divided into 4 quarters of 8 lessons each. An adult student will be placed in a small class that will meet for 45 minutes each week. Please refer to the attached class schedule for all scheduled holidays. And that class schedule will be the same class schedule that you give to your children's classes. So you only need to come up with one schedule. All right, the next section, tuition payment. The 32-lesson course for adults is paid for in 4 equal quarters of 8 lessons each. The 8-lesson quarter costs, and then that'll be, you know, 1/4 of your annual tuition for the children. So in our example earlier, it would be $150. The 8-lesson quarter costs $150 and is due in full prior to the first lesson of each quarter. The tuition payment holds a place for you in one of my classes. Therefore, it is non-refundable. An adult student is only committing to 8 lessons at a time. If the adult student chooses to terminate piano lessons before the end of May, please notify My Piano Studio, Piano by You, before the next 8-lesson quarter begins. Music. Students should complete each music book in 8 to 16 lessons. The music book is required for the course, and the cost is $25. Of course, our books are not $25. They're $19.95, but since I'm in Texas, I had to add in sales tax, and I added in shipping. So I just come up with a flat number for them. That way I know that all of my costs are covered. And is paid for upon distribution. If a student withdraws from a class before the first lesson, although the tuition is non-refundable, the $25 for the music book will be returned to the student. If a student withdraws after classes have begun, the $25 for the music book, as well as the full tuition, will be non-refundable. Missed lessons. Now this is very important for adult classes because, as I said, they miss more lessons than the children's classes. No tuition credits or makeup lessons are given, and as you can see, this is in bold type. The student should call or email Piano by You to find out what music was assigned that day if the student must miss a class. And here they have to sign. I have read the above policy of Piano by You. Of course, you will put in the name of your piano studio. I understand the policies and I will abide by them. I agree to pay your name, your piano studio. But of course, this is an example from my registration form. I agree to pay Colleen Cole, DBA, Piano by You, let's say $125 is our example, the $125 tuition and any music charges on the first lesson of each 8-lesson quarter through May 2009. Of course, this year it would be through 2012. I understand that my tuition for each 8-lesson quarter is non-refundable. I understand that I am only committing to one 8-lesson quarter at a time. If I want to quit piano lessons before the end of the full course in May 2012, I will notify Piano by You before the first lesson of the new 8-lesson quarter. Here they sign it and they date it. So they have signed that they understand that this tuition is non-refundable, and they understand that there are no makeup lessons or tuition credits if they should miss. And then down here at the end, I just tell them that, your class will meet. In 2009, I was only teaching adults on Mondays and Thursdays, so you need to put, whatever days that you are available to teach adults. Your piano class will meet in the evening on whatever days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. If there is a specific time or times on either of those evenings that you are not available to attend piano class, please indicate below. This information will be used to schedule your class, so please be thorough. Once classes are scheduled, they cannot be changed. And then there they put down, that they can't, that I have choir practice on Wednesdays or, whatever, so you know what to work around. And then a confirmation of your piano class day and time will be mailed to you. And at the bottom here, I just have the contact information for My Piano Studio. So that is what they sign when they sign up. So they know when they're going into it that they will not be receiving any tuition credits. They will not be receiving any makeup lessons, and that they are paying up front for 8 full lessons. At least that way, if somebody pays you their tuition and they take one lesson and never come back, at least you got something out of it. Yes, now you have a gap in your schedule. Nobody likes to have that, but at least it was somewhat worth your while. Okay, so what to teach these beginning adult classes? Well, luckily we have an older beginner course. We have our older beginner level 1, and this book is an accelerated version of levels 1A and 1B. So if you're already familiar with our method, the older beginner level 1 book covers everything that's covered in level 1A and 1B. And just briefly what that is, we teach how to count rhythm, then we teach the keys on the piano. Now with an adult class, you will teach all of that probably in one lesson. So they move through these books quickly. Well, maybe 2 lessons. I would say rhythm and CD and E in one lesson, and then all the other white keys maybe in the second lesson. Then we start teaching how to read staff notes. In the treble clef, they learn C up to G, and in the bass clef, they learn C down to A. and they start putting hands together. So that's what we cover. Oh, sorry, that's only level 1A. Then in level 1B, so for all of older beginner level 1, staff notes would be C up to G in the treble clef and C down to F in the bass clef. They get fairly into putting hands together. They start playing thirds in the left hand. We have ensembles. We have 3 ensembles in this older beginner level 1 book. All of the student parts and the teacher's part are included in this older beginner level 1 book. Then in the older beginner level 2 book, that's when they start moving into the lower bass clef. We go all the way down to bottom line G. They learn the entire bass clef, and the hands together music becomes more difficult. So after our 2 older beginner books, they would go directly into our standard level 3A book. And from there they would follow the same course curriculum as the children, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, and so on. So to teach an adult class, it will still be a 45-minute class, as always. But you will not be having any game time. I mean, you just can't get the adults to play the games. And you also will not spend any time on worksheets. What you'll want to do is tell the adults that they need to complete the worksheets at home. Now that's something that you really have to stay on their case about because they don't always do that, but they need to. They really need to review that theory. Now because we don't have the game time and it's difficult to get them to do the worksheets, you really need to make sure that you review the theory while the students are at the piano. And you can incorporate the theory into teaching the music. So when you're talking to them about a piece that they're about to play, just ask them, okay, so how many beats are going to be in each measure in this piece? What finger are you going to start on? What finger are you going to put on D in the treble clef? What's another name for the treble clef? What does DC Alfine tell you to do? You just ask them the questions, the same questions you would ask the students during game time, but it's more of like a college lecture than a game. With the children you make it a game. With the adults you just ask them the information or just tell them. If you're in an adult class where the adults really don't show any interest in being interactive and answering the questions that you're asking, then just tell them. Okay, the right hand's going to be playing in the G clef. The G clef is also known as the treble clef. The left hand, of course, is in the bass clef. That's also known as the F clef. Time signature is 3/4. That tells us there's going to be 3 beats in each measure. The quarter note will receive 1 beat. The DC Alfine at the end, just sit there and literally just tell them everything. But you want to make sure that you go over it and over it and over it. Now, you don't have to go over it quite as much as you do with the children. You don't necessarily have to tell them all that information on every piece that they learn. But you do want to make sure that you go over some theory in every piano lesson. And even the theory from the very beginning, when they learned how to count rhythm and the keys on the piano, they learned a lot of information in that first piano lesson. So you want to make sure that in the adult classes you continuously refer to the notes as, the right hand starts on a quarter note, the left hand's going to start with a dotted half note. So they make sure that they always know those terms. With your adult classes, this is something that you don't necessarily need to do with the children's classes, but the adult classes tend to prefer to have some independent time in the class, especially at the beginning. They come into piano, they've been at work, they've been thinking of other things, they haven't even really thought about piano today until they walked into your piano class, and suddenly you're saying, okay, play this piece for me. So many adults prefer to have some time to warm up. And kind of get them in the mode of thinking about piano. So that's something to think about. Also, not all of the adults will want to play their homework for you, and it's not like a children's class where you can just make them do it anyway. The adults, they're the ones paying for the class. If they don't want to play their homework, then don't force them to play their homework. Some adults are very shy, but that doesn't mean that they're not enjoying piano class and that they're not having fun playing the piano at home. So what you can do is just ask the student, can you play this piece? And they'll say, yeah, I can play it. And you go, okay. Because as I said, they're the ones paying for the tuition. If they feel that they have gotten everything that they want out of the previous piano lesson, that's their decision. So, it is good to hear the adults play their homework because you do need to know if they can do it. But you will find adults that just flat out do not want to play their homework for you. And you don't need to push the issue. Just continuously ask them, can you do it? And they say yes, and then you move on with the class. Now, the adult classes will move much faster than the children's classes, much faster. Like I said in the first piano lesson, I've had some adult classes that learned how to count rhythm. They learned the C, D, and E, and they learned the F, G, A, B, and I think we even have F sharp and B flat in there in the pre-staff note reading music. Some adult classes will do all of that in one lesson. Other adult classes, it might be like 1.5 lessons, but they move much faster than the children's classes. So what you need to do is let the class move at its own pace. Don't just plan, okay, these are the pieces we're going to learn, and then you get through them in 20 minutes and you're stuck with nothing to do. Just go in there knowing we're just going to go through this music at the speed that they go through it. If you go in there thinking they're going to do 2 pieces, be prepared to do 4. If the class has learned a piece and they can play it, you turn the page and you do the next piece. Also keep in mind that these adult classes are spending the full 45 minutes at the piano. So not only do they learn faster, but they're also spending more time at the piano. So they will be learning considerably more music than the children's classes. So as I said, just let them move at their own pace. Now, as with children, adults will not progress. They will not all progress at the same pace, but surprisingly, you will see more of a gap in the speed at which students progress with the adults. That's surprising. I mean, you would think that some children just can't keep up in the school and all of that, but you will see a much larger learning gap with the adults. You will find that adults that are mentally challenged on a daily basis, say with work, they will pick up information very quickly. And then you can have other adults that have really just kind of been enjoying life for a decade or so, and you will very quickly find that they do not learn as quickly at all. They will have much more trouble with the eye-hand coordination, and they will not retain the information as much. So that's just something you have to be prepared for. The fact that you will have vast differences in the speed in which these adults will learn. So what you want to do is teach the class at a moderate pace. You don't necessarily need to teach the class at the speed of the best student, but you certainly do not want to teach the class at the speed of the slowest student. Now I know that some of you that have attended my other seminars are thinking, what? Don't teach the class at the speed of the best student? Because with the children you do. With the children you teach the class at the speed of the best student, and everyone else is expected to keep up. The reason why you don't necessarily teach adult students at the speed of the best student is because the best students might not necessarily stick with piano for very long. With the children, the best students usually do. They stick with piano for years and years. But the adult students that are the best students, they usually have careers. The best adult students are usually in a fairly high-powered career. That's what makes them good piano students, is that they're mentally challenged on a daily basis. But because of that high-powered career, they usually don't get to stick with piano for as long as they would like to. So with the adult classes, what you want to do is teach the class at a moderate pace, basically at the pace of the middle-of-the-line adults. Because it's the moderate students, the middle-of-the-line adults, that will probably stick with piano the longest. The adults that usually stick with piano the longest are usually maybe they've just retired, or even if they haven't retired, their children are probably adults by now, and so they have many years to devote to learning to play the piano. A lot of adults have always wanted to learn to play the piano, and they've always said, as soon as my kids are grown or as soon as I retire, then I'm going to learn how to play the piano. And those might not be the students that move the fastest for you, but they will be the ones that stick with piano the longest. So unlike the children's classes, you do not necessarily teach it at the speed of the best student. You want to teach it kind of at a moderate rate, middle of the line students. Okay, so let's take a quick look at, say, a piece of music that you would be teaching in an adult class. And let's talk about how you would teach this piece differently than you would teach it to a children's class. This is a piece that's towards the end of Level 2. So it's at the end of our Older Beginner Level 2 book. Now, in a children's class, what you would do with this piece is you'd walk around and you'd show them. Hang on, let me grab a different pen so that I can make a smaller line here. In a children's class, what you do is you'd walk around and show them. That's the first beat, the second beat, the third beat, the fourth beat, so that they can see that their hands are not coming in together at the same time. With an adult class, the adults probably all have a pen. At the beginning of my adult classes, I have my box of markers that the kids use, and the adults pass them around, and they each take their own pen, and they take their own notes. So with an adult class, what we would do is we would say, okay, everybody, let's take a look at this first measure. For the first beat, what note are you going to play in the right hand? What are you going to play in the treble clef? See, that's a good chance for me to review the fact that the name of this is the treble clef. And everyone would say D. Okay, and in the left hand, what kind of interval are we going to play? And they look at it. Some of them might get the answer right. Some of them might get it wrong. But, okay, so in the left hand, we're going to play a fifth while the right hand plays D. So everybody draw a line between D and then that sixth in the left hand. Did I say fifth earlier? I may have. I don't remember. Draw a line between the D and the sixth in the left hand. Now, for the second beat, what is the left hand doing? And everyone says, well, it's still playing that sixth in the left hand. That's right. The left hand is playing the sixth, but the right hand now plays. So the right hand plays by itself. So everybody draw a line from that A down to the empty space between the sixth and the left hand. And then on the third beat, the left hand plays by itself because, of course, the right hand is still holding. And then on the fourth beat, the right hand plays by itself. So instead of you walking around and drawing all of those lines for them, we're actually discussing them as a group, and everybody's drawing their own lines. And as they're drawing their own lines, you can walk around the class to make sure that they're drawing them correctly. So they have all seen for themselves that your hands are not going to play at the same time here, the right hand and the left hand. Okay, so class, how many beats are going to be in each measure in this piece? And they say there's 4 beats. Somebody said, well, why is that? Because 4/4 is the time signature. That's right, and the quarter note will receive 1 beat because the bottom number in the time signature is a 4. Now, are we going to play this piece with both hands or just one hand? And they say both hands. And I say, well, how do we know that? And they say, well, there's a brace over here that tells us we're going to read both steps together at the same time. Now, at the end, we have these little 2 dots that are right before the double bar line at the end. And I just tell the class, you know, what that tells us we're going to do. Instead of asking them about it like I would in a game time, I just tell them, you know, that's a repeat sign. It tells us we're going to go back to the beginning and we're going to play the whole piece again. Now, can everybody look at measures 15 and 16? Below measure 15, what does it tell us to do? And they say, it tells us to hold down the pedal. And I say, that's right. So I want everyone with your pen to draw a line from the PED over to where you let the pedal up. So everybody draw a line there to remind you that you're going to hold the pedal down for both of those measures. Now in measure 15, it also says RIT. What does that tell us to do? And someone in the class tells me, you know, that tells us to gradually slow down, and then I ask them what DIM means. So we go over everything in the piece. Okay, class, so let's all play the right hand by itself. And we go through the piece with just the right hand, as we would do with any class, you know, whether they're children or adults. We all play the right hand together. Now, for those of you that haven't taught group piano before, we go through the right hand basically like anybody plays any piece of music. I'm going to see, I got a new microphone, so I can get a little further away from it than I could before. I'm not sure if y'all are going to be able to hear this piano, but at least I can give us a little bit of piano here. Let me turn my computer so I can see the screen. Terribly sorry. Okay, so I'm going to pretend like we're in a piano class. Okay, everybody, let's all play the right hand. Let's do just the first line. We'll see how it goes. Okay, everybody ready? Ready, let's play. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cross over. Index finger on B flat. Thumb on C. Reach with your ring finger up to G. 2, A, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's a quick overview on how you actually play a piece together as a group. As you can hear, I'm kind of giving them coaching tips as we're going through. Index finger crosses over on B flat, put your thumb on C, and then in measure 6, you reach up with your ring finger on G. All right, so then with the left hand, we would go through that all the way through, also as a group. Ready, let's play. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to turn the piano up just because I don't know. I want to make sure y'all can hear it. Okay, measure 3. Ready? Let's play. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we just all go through the piece like this together, as you would with any piano lesson. And everybody plays it together as a group. Okay, so after we've gone through both hands, then we start putting it together. Okay, let's start with just that first measure. Let's make sure that everybody understands this rhythm in the first measure. On the first beat, both hands play. Second beat, just the right hand plays. On the third beat, just the left hand plays. And on the fourth beat, just the right hand plays. So we kind of get a little seesaw motion in there. Okay, everybody ready? Let's try it. We'll go very slowly. Let's play. Together, right, left, right, together. All right, so how did that go? Did y'all do it? Okay, let's try it again. Everybody ready? Let's play. Together, right, left, right, together. All right, so you can see how we would go through the whole piece that way. And that's how you would teach that piece to any level class, whether it's a children's class or an adult class. Just keep in mind that in a children's class, you're going to walk around, you're going to mark in their books for them, you're going to kind of tell them the information more. With an adult class, you're going to discuss it more with them. You know, how do you know that the right hand plays by itself on that second beat, while the left hand is still holding the sixth? The adults want to be a little more interactive about that. All right, so let's move on. In the summer, what do you do in the summer with the adults? Because of course the adults don't end school like the children do. So do you keep teaching your adult class, or do you break off for the summer? Well, what you should do is ask the class, because a lot of the adults in your class will have children, so they will want to be off during the summer because they're doing completely different activities than they do during the school year. Some adults want to continue with through the summer. They feel that if they break for the summer, you know, that kind of breaks their stride and they might not come back to it. So what you should do is just ask the class if they want to continue taking in the summer, or if they want to take the summer off. If the entire class wants to take during the summer, then you can continue in your textbook. And if only some of the people want to take in the summer, then you should teach extracurricular material. And we have an entire webinar on different options for extracurricular material. The reason for that, of course, is because you don't want to leave behind the people that didn't take in the summer. This way you're in the same place in the textbook when you come back in the fall. Now, if you do teach your adult classes in the summer, I would not suggest teaching them every week all through the summer, because you need to have time off so that you're ready for the next school year. And even if you only teach, say, one adult class, you might think, oh, that's not going to make me tired. I'll be ready for the school year. But there's just something mentally about the fact that you are teaching piano as opposed to being off for the summer. Even if you teach one class for the entire summer, when the fall comes around, you might feel like you haven't had any kind of a break, even though you were only teaching one class. So it's up to you, but just make sure that you do get some time off in the summer. So what you might want to do is just teach one 8-lesson section in the summer. And then that will still give you a few weeks off from piano. All right, so if you have any questions, go ahead and click the little orange rectangle at the top of your screen and send me any questions, and I'm happy to answer them. I'll get a little drink of water here while everyone's typing. I can tell y'all are all typing that you're full of questions for me. Okay, here's a question. What do I do if an adult just wants to learn to play chords? Well, you need to tell them when they sign up for the class that this is a classical piano teaching method and that you are going to teach them how to read music. They do start to learn chords in level 3, but some adults want to only learn chords. They don't want to learn how to read music. They just want to learn chords. So basically they can just play like the guitar type chords that are written above the staff. And if you have an adult that wants to learn those chords, just tell them, you know, that's not the course that I offer. We do teach chords and we do teach how to read those guitar chords, but we also teach, you know, we spend most of our time on how to read staff notes. So if that's what somebody wants to learn, then your course is not what they want to sign up for. Okay. Yeah, somebody else followed up. What do you do if an adult only wants to learn to play hymns? Hymns are difficult to play, and basically you are teaching them how to play hymns. You're teaching them how to read staff music, and once they know how to read staff music, they can read anything they want. But, you know, I have had adults come in, and I'm sure everybody's had adults come in that say, I just want to learn how to play hymns. Well, you know, that's like saying that you only want to learn how to read Don Quixote in Spanish. Well, you have to actually learn how to speak the entire Spanish language before you can read that one book in Spanish. So if somebody just wants to learn hymns, then yes, they should sign up for your course, but they should sign up for your course knowing that being able to play at the level of playing hymns will take you know, a few years to get up to that level. Okay, let's see. What do I do if an adult pays for 8 lessons, attends 1, and then wants a refund for the other 7 lessons? You can show your policy to them and show them where they signed saying that there is no refund for the other 7 lessons. It doesn't matter if they paid for 8 lessons and didn't attend any of them. They signed that they know that these lessons are non-refundable. If they start making a huge argument out of it, then you know, it's up to you whether or not you actually refund the money. You know, I probably would, because in the end, you know, what's $100 in the course of your life? It's better than having someone that's going to make a huge issue out of it. But technically, officially, and legally, you don't have to refund them any money because they signed knowing that they were paying up front. What do you do with an argumentative adult who is never wrong? Yeah, that happens in these adult classes. They tend to, some adults get very upset if you tell them that they hit the wrong key or if they played the rhythm incorrectly. Some adults just want to come in and have you tell them how wonderful they are at playing the piano, and they don't want you to correct them at all. And if that's the case, then you just kind of let them play it the way they want to play it, because they've made it clear that they don't want you to tell them otherwise. Sorry, I was reading a question while I was thinking. Also with adults, talking about the argumentative side, with children that have trouble keeping up with a piano class, they don't ever say anything to you. You know, they're having trouble keeping up. You know it, they know it, but no one ever says anything. In an adult class, when you have a slow student, they can get very argumentative about the fact that you're moving on with the class and that they haven't learned it yet. And that can be a little tricky to navigate sometimes, because of course you don't want to come out and say, you know, look, you're slower than you should be, and I can't hold everyone back because of you. So you just need to navigate it. Just say, you know, I know that you understand the information. I can tell by the way you're playing it that you've grasped the knowledge, and I know that you'll be able to practice this at home, and when you come back, you'll be able to play it perfectly. So you can say things like that. That way you can move on and start learning another piece, even though they can't play that piece perfectly. You've made it clear to them that they're a wonderful piano student and they can definitely do the work, and that when they practice it at home, then they'll be just great. All right, let's see here. Let me scroll through the questions, make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, I only see one other question here. What do I do if an adult misses many lessons and falls very far behind the class? As with any class, it's their responsibility to keep up. But, with these adult classes, as I said, we get adults that are working and they're busy with family, and adults tend to miss more classes than the children do. And if they fall behind, it's up to them to keep up. If they fall very far behind and perhaps you have another piano class starting, you can always switch them over and put them in a different class. So that's one option. But yeah, if they fall behind, it's on them. They signed up for this class. The class is moving forward. You can't hold the class back for someone that's just not showing up. So it's on them. All right, so if anybody has any other questions, please send them through now. I think I've answered everybody's questions. Okay, so I'm not seeing any others. As I said, I will be sending the recording of this webinar to you. I'll send that out on Monday. I'll also send the outline, and in the outline you will receive a copy of that policy, so you can use that when you're typing up your own policy for your adult classes. If you do find that you have any other questions later on, you're more than welcome to email them to me. We're always here to answer questions for you, and we welcome you. I'm trying to say two sentences at once here. We hope that you have the best of luck with your adult piano classes and the building of your group piano studio. So if you have any other questions later on, please feel free to send them through. So I hope everyone else enjoys the rest of their summer Saturday, and I will be talking to you soon. All right, thanks a lot.